Okay, we're going to be working with our fourth module, and we're going to try to see and try to evaluate projects. What I mean by that is trying to see whether our projects are going to be profitable. So the first thing we have is this estimation, right? We have an initial outflow of $10,000. That is an investment that we're going to make. We're going to put $10,000 into our project. We usually say that that's going to happen at year 0 because we are saying that it's going to that's happening today. So in 1 year we're expected to have 5,000, in 2 years 2,000, 3 years 6,000, and 4 years 4,000. Right. So my first question is this a good project? Would you put your money in this project? Well, it could be a very profitable project. Right? It could be a very good project. But as of right now, we don't know. Right? We need to have some numbers, we need to have some objective calculations in order to come up with a good estimation on profitability. So we're going to be using these three methods: payback, net present value, and internal rate of return, in order for us to know whether we should invest in this project. So I'm going to move these down, and I'm going to copy our cash flows, and we're going to work with payback. So payback, basically, it's a very intuitive and straightforward method. How long does it take for me to get my money back? So in order for us to do that, we're going to add a line called a cumulative cash flow. It's pretty much the balance. How much do I owe by the end of the year in order to break even? So if we start with that calculation, we know that by year 0, and I'm going to center everything just for style purposes, on year 0, we have $10,000, right? We're $10,000 out. Now, for our next year, for year number 1, we are going to measure the difference, right? So we start with $10,000, then we add $5,000. How much are we going to owe by the end of the year? Well, $5,000, right? Kind of makes sense, right? I'm 10,000 out, then I get 5,000. Well, I'm 5,000 out. So if we just click and drag, we will be able to come up with the balance at the end of every year. Now, this is a very important thing for this method. We know that from year 2 to year 3, our negative balance becomes a positive balance. So, we know that we're trying to figure out at which point in time are we breaking even. So we know that it's going to be somewhere between year 2 and year 3, right? Why? Well, because that's when our balance goes from negative to positive. So how long does it take for us to be there? Well, the payback is going to be equal to 2 years. We know that it's somewhere in between 2 and 3 years. So it's going to be 2 years plus something else. That something else, we don't know it yet, but we know that we owe $3,000, right? Let me put this so that it stays. So we know that we owe $3,000, and we know, and those $3,000 come from here, so these become positive because that's the amount of money we need to receive. And we've also calculated that we were going to be receiving $6,000 that year, right? So that number comes from here. So basically, what we're doing is, we know that we are going to be 2 years. It's going to be 2 years plus $3,000 that we need to receive out of $6,000 that we will be receiving in year 3. So the total is, say, equal 2 plus 3,000 divided by 6,000. There you go, 2.5, and the unit is years. So if I ask you, what is the payback for this project? Is 2.5 years. Now, is that a good time frame? Would you be willing to wait 2.5 years to get your money back? Well, it all depends on you, right? It all depends on whether you think 2.5 years it's a good time frame. For some people, some industries, that might be a long time. For others, it might be a very short time. There is no rule of thumb. if you are in a high inflation environment, you can probably expect, or you will want to have your money as soon as possible. Now, this method is very intuitive, it's very straightforward, it's very easy to calculate. However, it has a major weakness. And that weakness is that it will not take time value of money into account. Now, what is time value of money? Well, time value of money is the principle that $1 today is worth more than $1 in the future. Think about $1,000 10 years ago and $1,000 today. You cannot buy the same amount of goods and services today with $1,000 than what you were able to do in previous years. Our dollars are gonna worth less and less as time goes on. Therefore, we need to account for that. The payback method does not account for that. It counts every dollar as if it were in today's terms. Now, the method is very intuitive, it gives us a good idea, but it's not very accurate. That's why we have these other two methods, net present value and internal rate of return. So for net present value, I'm going to copy the original stream of cash flows, and we're going to be making some calculations. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to have an interest rate. There's an explanation in the module, but I'm going to be very brief here. Think about that rate as how much do you need to pay your investors. Or if you're investing yourself, well, how much do you want to make? You can also see that rate as an opportunity cost, right? If you were investing somewhere else, you could be making 10%. But instead of investing somewhere else, you decide to invest in your business, right? Therefore, you need to make at least 10%. Now, that rate is going to be different for every business. If you're in a very risky environment, you might want to bump that rate up. If you're in a very safe and stable environment, you might want to lower your rate. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calculating the equivalent of these cash flows in today's terms, right? So, in other words, we're going to be calculating how much do we need to have today in order to have $5,000 in 1 year, assuming the interest rate is 10%. We're also assuming compounding, right? So in this case, we need to know how much do we have today in order to get $2,000 in 2 years, assuming an interest rate of 10% with yearly compounding. Now, that sounds complicated. It is not, because I'm just going to write PV, which means present value. Well, actually, there is a formula in order for us to do that in one very quick step. And we just hit equal and NPV open parentheses. So NPV, what it does, it does not give us the whole net present value, but just the present value of everything starting at year 1. So if you see Excel, here it says rate and all the value. So you just, as soon as you open parentheses, you have the list, and you just follow the list, right? So you just click on the box where you have the rate. Now, know that I'm clicking on the boxes rather than typing numbers. You can certainly type numbers, but if for some reason you decide to change the rate, Excel will automatically update the results if you're making a reference into a cell. So you see it asks for values. I'm just clicking and dragging and then closing parentheses and hitting enter. Usually when that shows up, it means that we need to adjust the width, and there you go. So this number means that in today's terms, in today's dollars, and assuming we want a return of 10%, $5,000 in 1 year, $2,000 in 2 years, $6,000 in 3 years, and $4,000 in 4 years is equivalent to 13,438.29. I'm going to move this right here. Now, what is our net present value? Net present value. Well, we know that we will be receiving that much money in today's terms, in today's dollars. Now, we also know that today we're investing $10,000. Now, I'm adding them because those $10,000 already have a negative sign. We hit enter. we're going to get this number. So what does this mean? This means that once after we take our initial investment into account, we will be making $3,438.29 in today's terms. Now, is that good? Well, I would say that's good. Why? Because net present value is positive. Now, you want that number to be positive because that means that you're making money in today's terms. You want to make money in today's terms. Obviously, the larger the number, the better for you, right? Now, don't be too greedy. There are going to be ways, or there are going to be situations in which that number will not be able to grow, that much or as much as we would like, but it will be growing and it might be positive for you. So now, on the other hand, don't be too conservative because you might be missing out on very good opportunities of making money. So this is kind of like an art as well, and as you have more experience in your business, you're going to realize that you might either need to take more risk or need to be a little bit more conservative. That's something you will learn as experience goes on. Now, I'm going to copy the same stream of cash flows and going to go with internal rate of return. And we already said that we want to make 10% out of our investment. Now, the internal rate of return, the definition is the rate at which our net present value is equal to 0. So what does that mean? That is how much, or what is the minimum rate at which we will accept the project. Let's make a calculation. Now, this is way more simple. We just say it's equal to IRR, and we select all of their values, including our first year. And there you go, 25%. Now, how do we interpret this? 24.95. It means that if the rate is 24.95%, we make no money. Now, if we expect to make, or if the required rate of return that we have for this project is less than 24.95, it will be a good project for us. We want the rate of our project to be less than the IRR. If for some reason the rate is greater than the IRR, we do not invest in this project. Why? Well, because it will be more costly for us to fund the project, especially if you compare that to the amount of money you will be receiving. So you need to be very careful about this. So IRR, if our rate is less than IRR, it is a good project. If the rate is greater than IRR, it's not a good project. Now, if you're comparing two projects and you calculate net present value and IRR, and for some reason you have conflicting signals, always go to net present value. Actually, I'm going to highlight this because this is, in my opinion, and in many other financial professional opinions, this is the most important method for you. So